Welcome to the Modern Latino with your host Gene and Ivan. Bienvenidos. Iván, ¿cómo le va?
What's up?
What's up, man?
I'm good, man. How you feeling?
I'm a little stressed out today, unfortunately.
Yes, I am. People don't know what all the work that goes behind the scenes. So it's been a little.
It's a learning experience, and yeah, I mean, I enjoy it. Don't get me wrong, but it's for me trying to figure something out that I know a youngster is going to figure out in 2 seconds is I don't know, man. It stresses me out a little bit, but it shouldn't. It really shouldn't.
Don't stress. I'm sure a lot of our fans don't know how to operate their iPhones, but this is the Modern Latino Podcast with your host. My name is Ivan. That's Gene. Thank you for joining us for another episode. We're actually really super duper excited for this show today because we have an awesome guest who's joining us. If you've listened to the show before, you know that we're all about amplifying the voices and the messages that people in the Latino community have to share, especially those who are doing cool things in the community to support our people. Today we have a guest named Brandon Espinosa, and Brandon is the founder of the Salsa Project NYC, which is a super cool. I guess it's a super cool business, but the project itself is designed to help promote and make sure that salsa, the culture, the history of salsa is available for young people and for future generations. And so Brandon and the Salsa Project, they're all about making sure that the music is being promoted, that there are events, that there's information available online for people, so that this way the young Latinos that are out there today understand the significance of salsa music, because it is significant in our history.
Of course.
And so we're going to talk to Brandon and learn about what he's done with the Salsa Project. We met him at an event, and we were just blown away by the work that he's doing, and it's really cool. And so I think that you guys will enjoy the conversation with Brandon.
Yeah, and it's you know what? Let's just get Brandon in here.
Yeah, let's get him on the line.
All right.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? How you doing?
Good. Hey, so nice to see you, man. Thank you so much. Apologies, we were a couple minutes late. I don't know. Some people would say Latinos are always late, but we don't subscribe to that. Thanks for joining us, man.
Always something, man. Always something.
Of course, a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. You know, we're really excited. I know I'm really excited because when we met you at the that Vecinos event,
the Parranda.
First of all, it was a great event. You did a great job. It was great learning about the Salsa Project. And I have to say, as someone who is like from New York, right? Like I'm from Brooklyn. My partner Gene here. You were born in Queens, or you were from Queens?
Yeah, I'm
right?
from Queens.
And so I love salsa music, and I had not heard of it, and so I was a little bit like, I felt like I was out of the loop in terms of what you had been doing, because you'd been doing it for a while. And so when we saw you speak and heard about it, I was like, we got to get Brandon on our show, because what you're doing is so important. As the father of two Puerto Rican daughters, and my daughters are actually half Puerto Rican. They love.
Mine are too. Mine are half Puerto Rican, half Cuban.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
So a little bit of the best of both worlds.
Exactly. So, but that's exactly my point. They Brandon, and so my partner Gene may not understand this, but Brandon.
Oh, stop! I understand.
I say this all the time. Doesn't it feel like being Puerto Rican, we have like a secret or like a superpower? I don't know. But whenever I go to the island, it's like it recharges me, and that sense of pride. And I mean, I'm sure everyone has that for their countries, but I think ours is a little bit more special. But I'm kidding around. Don't feel bad, Jim. But you've
been telling me you're going to invite me to the island, and
we're going to go. We're actually going to go.
No invites.
But the reason why I'm saying that is why I think the Salsa Project is so important, is because my girls love salsa music, and they hear all the songs that I play, and it's just something that I think if you don't play the music, if they don't know about it, it is something that could be lost from a cultural standpoint. And so the work that you're doing with the Salsa Project is amazing. So I'm going to give you a chance to talk a little bit about the Salsa Project and how did you get involved with this? But I did just want to give you props, because as I learned more and more about it, and I watched the documentary, it just hit me on all levels.
Well, thank you for having me, and I'm glad we were able to find some time, and appreciate your remarks at the beginning. And I always say this work is about the community, and I'm humbled to have been inspired to do this work, and grateful to have an opportunity to speak with you all and share a little bit more around who I am and why I do this work and what I hope comes out of this work.
Yeah, and we really do appreciate it because we really do believe that it's something that's special, first of all, and something that's needed also. And in my particular aspect, I'm from Colombia. I didn't really grow up with salsa music, obviously cumbia, but my parents always danced it, and for some reason, I just never really got into it, as much. And so now, if we just fast forward not to what we are today, I wish that I had all the attributes of being able to just like listen and to just get in there and enjoy. I mean, not only just the music in itself, but the dancing is just, to me, it's special. It really is very special just to see people gliding on the floor. It's a beautiful thing. It really is.
Especially, I mean, Colombia is one of the meccas of salsa, right? You look at Cali, La Feria de Cali every year. Some of the best descend upon Colombia. And then obviously you have Nietzsche. That's often a part of the celebrations. But yeah, Colombia is a very special place for the music. And I actually have a good friend, named Carlo, who actually runs El Museo de la Salsa in Barrio Obrero in Cali. So hopefully in the years ahead, there'll be a collaboration between us where we can do some work out there in collaboration with the museum.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That's awesome. So Brandon, so here on the Modern Latino, we're a New York City-based podcast, and so what we try to do is we try to meet up with Latinos who are doing amazing things for their communities, specifically things that are different, because we are not a monolith, and all Latinos have their own unique culture, and they bring something special. And so what we try to do is focus on people like yourself who are doing things that we want to amplify the stories about, because we want to make sure that people understand that there's a lot of potential in the Latino community, and that we don't have to live up to whatever stereotypes are out there. And so I really like what you're doing, because it is something profound in that salsa music is one of the cornerstones of, I'll say, Latinos, obviously Puerto Ricans and Cubans and whatever. I mean, it's for everyone, right? Salsa's for everyone. And it's such a beautiful art form. How did you get involved? Like, what made you decide that you wanted to take this mission on?
Sure, man. I mean, I think the journey starts probably before I was born, I often joke. But when I was a kid, I grew up in a household that was full of salsa music, right? And so, you think of some of my, younger memories of this music, and my mother playing boleros, which reminded her of her mom, and transitioning into, the upbeat sounds of a gran combo. I think of my dad when he would pick me up and we would go to Virgin Megastore, HMV, and listen to whatever the new CDs that were being released, because he was a record collector. And he would be like, "Oh, Brand, come over here, take a listen to this and this beat," and then go home and look at the artwork and the credits, and introduce me to different sounds, right, of salsa. And so that was kind of my beginnings of getting immersed into the music. And with time, it's almost like diffusion, right? When you're constantly in a place of rhythm and sounds that are pervasive and relevant to your culture, you end up becoming what that is, right? That environment kind of shapes you by a way of diffusion. I almost like to think about it, osmosis, if you will. And so this sound, this music was kind of diffused into my blood. And it was a sound that I learned to appreciate as I got older. And as I got older, there was kind of this inflection point where there were many concerts happening. And, you look at the heydays of salsa, right? The 70s, the 80s, the days of Fania, New York City, salsa every single night, multiple places in these spaces that were not only social spaces, but also political spaces, community spaces, and places of gathering, right? Just in general. And, when I was growing up, some of that was lost, but there was still a lot of places to go and hear the music and dance and whatnot. And I was fortunate enough that my parents would take me to these spots. So, everything from Lehman Center to Subrosa to, concerts at the parks around the city. And I often looked around and I was like, man, I'm the youngest person here. How is this music going to be preserved as our ancestors and the originators begin to leave us, little by little? And so something that was always on my mind, and I was like, I got to do something. And I was almost tasked and charged with this obligation to preserve this music. And, being young, you don't know where to start. You're like, it's salsa, I have no money. I appreciate the music, but what am I really going to do? And then you fast forward to 2018, and that's when my first daughter was born. And when she was born is when I knew I had to do something. And that obligation became more evident and intense. And that fire in me was lit. And so when she was born, 10 months later, so October 2018, I started the Salsa Project. And started it as a passion project and as a love letter to the music. And I knew I wanted to anchor around 4 main pillars. And that was going to be events, short docs, merchandise, and an online platform promoting the work of others doing things relevant to the culture and the music. And then I had to start to think about a mission, like why was I doing this, right? And that's where my daughter came into play. And that was kind of the catalyst of like, the mission of our work is to protect, preserve, and ensure that salsa doesn't die amongst a younger generation. But salsa is really the vehicle, right? When you start to unpack the music, there's a lot of stories of oppression. There's stories of, alegría and happiness and joy. There's stories of our, resilience and our immigration. And just you start to unpack this in a bigger way and you start to realize that. And so anyway, long story short, I realized that salsa was my vehicle really to preserve culture, tradition, and history, right? And so that's what we do, right? We're using salsa as a vehicle to protect, preserve, and ensure that our stories are told, our culture is preserved, and our traditions are maintained. And, as you look to the future of what we do and where we're headed, it's been an evolution, but that's always going to be the core principle of our work. So I would say, I started this as a passion project and it's evolved into something much greater, and fortunate to be where we are today, which is primarily because of the community that we serve and that we've created over the past 6+ years.
Now, and what I really like, and we don't have enough time to get into it in this show, but there's so much history behind salsa music, and you had mentioned it. There's different elements that kind of go into that mezcla, right? Bomba, plena, and all kinds of stuff. And I remember reading, and I think I sort of referenced on your website as well how the music was also used by like the slaves to communicate information amongst themselves on the islands, and it's just like when you think about the rich cultural heritage behind the music, I don't know that everyone knows that, and that's why I think the mission that you, number one, the fact that you understood this and realized this at such a young age, I give you, credit, because not a lot of people at a young age are thinking that way. But number two, it is so important that we keep that tradition alive, and the vehicle that you're doing it in, I think is really special. So thank you for doing that. I just wanted to kind of put that out there first.
I appreciate that. Thank you for those words.
So, I wanted to also kind of mention one last thing, is that when I think about salsa music, there's also like a strong sense of nostalgia, because growing up, it was always like family parties and then the salsa music, and we lived in like small apartments, and it was like move the table to against the wall, and then that was like the little dance floor. And back in Brooklyn and Queens and wherever we grew up, the family was very close together, and so all these parties were always packed. And as I think about it, I talk about that sense of nostalgia and culture. It's not like that now. So like I live in the burbs. My family, we're kind of all spread out right now, and it's not the same. It's not the same environment that we are used to. And so I try to explain it to my daughter sometimes, and I don't think they get it. Like one of the things I love to tell them is that we always used to have like a room where everyone threw all the coats, and then it would all be invariably all the kids would like be in there sleeping or whatever. And those are the special memories that I think people who grew up around that time have had, but not maybe the kids today may not realize. At least I don't know. At least in my experience so far.
I completely agree. Every gathering turned into like a discoteca.
Yeah.
It's like, we're so and so's birthday. Oh, dancing.
You just never realized how much space you had in a little apartment, right?
That is such a fact. You push the sofas to the side, the tables to the walls, and you dance on your little square, if you will.
That was it. So now you said you started this. You kind of came up with the realization that this is what you wanted to do. It couldn't have been easy. Like, what are some of the challenges that you faced when you wanted to, when you said, "Hey, I want to do this," and like, how did you go about doing it? It couldn't have been. I mean, unless it was that simple for you. But like, what were some of the challenges you faced as you try to put this together?
For sure. As I reflect back on where we were and where we are, the growth has been pretty profound. I think any business endeavor, right? When you set out to do something, it is important to have the passion and the discipline to overcome the inevitable hurdles that will come your way, right? And I think a lot of people have ideas and great ideas, especially in our communities, but they don't know how to put those ideas into action, or they often talk themselves out of moving from idea to thing, right? To action. And so with that being said, growing up, I was just instilled with this culture of like, you can do it, like put your mind to it, like work at it. And what I think I've learned over the journey and the process is that you're often closer than you think. And so transparently, like one of the big hurdles, right, which I think is one that many people face, is funding, right? You want to put together events, but you don't come from an affluent family. So how do you fund your idea, right? And how do you build a website? How do you incorporate a business? How do you build a business plan? What financials do you have to keep on your business? And how do you learn from it? How do you analyze it, right? It's almost that you become obsessed with what you're doing to a point where you find a way, right? And there's that saying, if there's a will, there's a way. And so some of the early challenges was definitely funding, right? Want to throw events, but you got to sell tickets. If you don't sell tickets, you lose money, right? And I would say that was probably the biggest, because there wasn't a lack of ideas. And I have somewhat of a startup background, very entrepreneurial nature, where I've been part of a few startups and businesses. So I've seen how, bigger startups get their start. And so I had a lot of the financial acumen, marketing know-how, but the funding was always the thing, right? And so, I think people see where we are today and they're like, dude, you're living the dream. And, it's amazing all the people you've met and the community you've, built, and your parties are rocking, and, you're the man. But there's a lot of work that still goes on behind the scenes. And, to be completely honest, the first 2 years we were hemorrhaging money, and I was about to close the business, right? Until, we got a sponsor to come in actually during the pandemic, where we had to transition our whole business model to virtual, right? The way you and I are conversing right now. And you're like, okay, well, how do I provide an experience now, right? Virtually. And so anyway, we got a first sponsor, and I always say, nobody wants to be first. Everybody's first to be second. And so that kind of validated the work that we were doing when we were able to generate sponsorship around this vision that we had. And so, I think another piece that one always encounters is like sometimes you get in the way of your own growth, right? And people are your greatest asset, but when you're not in a position to pay people, right, how do you leverage talent and sweat equity to build things that you want to do? And so there was a lot of like, friends doing favors in the very beginning, and, fortunate now, fast forward, we pay them and they are part of our story and the fabrics of, who we are. But I would say those would be the biggest two challenges, would be funding and people to scale, because again, if you're only touching 5 people, impactful, but we want to be touching 5,000 people, and that requires scale. And in order to scale, you need a team. And so I think that's something that we're continuously iterating on as we grow this project. And I would say just overall, like, not necessarily a hurdle, but between us, like, salsa is not the most popular genre of music, right? That resonates with many people. Maybe it is now because of Bad Bunny and Baile Novidad.
I was gonna say
that's Ivan right there.
Well, I was gonna say this is not the time to be saying it's not the most popular thing, right? Because,
but you get what I'm saying. In 2018, it hasn't died. It's never died. But right now we're experiencing a resurgence of the music, unlike anything else that I've seen in my lifetime. And you're seeing it come through in reggaeton, tembo, being sampled, being interpreted, right? You think of Rao, and tú con él, right? Interpreting Frankie Ruiz song. And so this music, I coined this year as the year of the resurgence of salsa. And you also have so many new artists, young artists that are on the scene. And that's a part of our work, right? How are we promoting and amplifying those that are putting out good salsa, but it might not be salsa dura, like from the 70s and 80s, Cheo, Maelo, La O, Ismael, like Miranda, so on and so forth. But it's still salsa, and I think we need to recognize those that are trying to do their part to continue and ensure that this genre of music doesn't die.
And I was going to say, I think you mentioned it. I think Bad Bunny's, the release of his new album, Debí tirar más fotos, I think that is helping exactly what we're doing, because like there is a strong sense of nostalgia for salsa. And I like that salsa romantico, from like the 80s, Jerry Rivera and those. I really enjoy that. That's my favorite version, or I guess type of salsa music. But I mean, I love it all. And I'm surprised that you didn't mention in terms of the challenges, which I thought would be a challenge, and I'm sure you would agree. Our salsa heroes are not getting any younger, right? And so I love your work with respect to like the documentaries, to capture those folks and those people who were involved with the scene early on, because those are the stories that we want to preserve more than anything, I think.
For sure. And I think that's like an important element. But you also raise another point, which is particularly like what is salsa when you look at an event, right? And it's the intersection of the musician, the dancer, the DJ, right? And so what you're alluding to is maybe some of the musicians. And for me, it wasn't a big challenge at the beginning, because one, you have DJs who are playing this music, but also, when you look at a short doc level of what we're doing, there's an element of like access, right? And how do you have access to these people to preserve these stories? So I think different verticals of our business encounter different challenges, but it wasn't necessarily like the famous salsa musicians that were a hurdle to our work, because we were just trying to create spaces where this music was heard, create documentaries where the stories were preserved. And I think that happens and will continue to happen without necessarily having, the heroes in this genre.
That makes sense. And yeah, with the way you put it, it totally makes sense. I guess I was saying those like Gilberto Santa Rosa and those guys, like, I love that they're still touring. and putting, and playing their work and stuff. And, we're not going to have them forever. And I was saying,
that's the GOAT. He's on my list to interview.
Man, it's funny. I actually had tickets to go see him perform, and it was during the pandemic, and then they canceled the show, and then it got delayed 2 years, and ultimately when it was rescheduled, I couldn't go, but I really would love to check out one of his concerts.
I've been to several. I've chatted with the man at length, not over a short, but yeah, he's just fuera liga, como dicen.
So Brandon, really quick, so how does the Salsa Project in itself, how does it engage with the New York City community? And what impact have you seen so far in regards to everything that you've done with the documentaries, with the events, and so on?
Yeah, so I'll be the first to say, and many have heard me say this on countless occasions, but we are nothing without our community, right? And primarily the New York City community, because this is our home and our base. And I always say this project is not about me, it's not about you, but it's about the power that exists in the connection between that community and how we come together to celebrate our culture. And so, it's been a lot of guerrilla grassroots marketing, right? It's old school, that was a vibe. I'm going to tell a friend to pull up, right? It's just that simple when it comes to kind of the event side. But you're still dealing with the challenge that it's salsa, right? It's not perreo, it's not, hip hop, right? It's not reggae, right? It's a bit more niche, right? And so I think one of the benefits to the new artists that are dropping new music is that they're morphing in maybe some more modern sounds to, i.e. Bad Bunny, right? You look at Nueva York, that's not a pure salsa. He samples salsa in the beginning, but then it, changes into a reggaeton dembow. But there's a new listener now appreciating salsa or asking questions and having a curiosity. And so, I think that's important. And so, to your question, how do you engage the community in the New York City community? It's remaining consistent and disciplined in what the mission of the work is. You come to one of our events, you're not going to hear one bachata, one merengue, one reggaeton. And maybe if I'm nice, after the event ends, we'll throw one on, right? Bad Bunny might have changed the dynamic a bit for us going into this year. But I say that to say is consistency and what you do allows people to appreciate it. And then by word of mouth, people just end up showing up. And I'd be remiss not to talk about the power of social media, right? In that, essentially started no followers. Now we have 21,000 followers, never paid for a follower. And it's just organic in terms of the content you're putting out and people wanting to know about what you're doing. And so, I think you heard me say this, Ivan, on other occasions. Social media has its pros and cons. But for us, it's a business tool to get people and to amplify the work that we're doing through our platform, the Salsa Project. And so hoping more of the New York City community engages. But there's a lot of spots to dance salsa these days in New York City, not as many as back in the day. And I think what sets us apart is the experience we provide.
So to that end, that's always something I think about. And we were talking about it before we went live. When you would go to a party years ago, I'd say I'm old now, but when you go to the parties back in the day, they would always have the modern music, freestyle, hip hop, whatever it was, and then everyone was always dancing. And then what I would used to see is that then when salsa comes on, a lot of people would kind of leave the dance floor, and then it was just those really good salsa dancers, and then everyone else was brave, who would be on the dance floor. And so as I think about it, I'm wondering is there a connection between people being able to dance salsa and the popularity of the music? Because it seems I should say I don't know if it's popularity, but like you said, the clubs, the more venues, because I feel like when you feel like you can dance salsa, then you love it, and then the dance floor is packed. But if you don't dance it, you kind of shy off, and I'm wondering if that has any kind of impact in terms of the staying power of salsa. Have you seen that? Is there a connection, or am I just making this up?
No, you raise an interesting thought, and there's two things I'm going to say. I think salsa is intimidating to many people. A lot of the resistance that you get around it is, "Oh, I don't know Spanish," or "Oh, I can't dance," and I'm always like, well, salsa is a feeling, and music is universal, and if you give yourself an opportunity to be in that environment, you won't be able to resist not moving, right? So I think that's one element and a barrier and a hurdle that we need to overcome. And then I'm going to just give you a quick story about me, right? And, you talk about people stop dancing at a party and there's only a few people dancing. And so I think about when I was young and I didn't know how to dance. And I was going to parties, and when salsa would come out, all the pretty girls dance salsa. And you were like, oh man, like, I can't dance with her because I'm going to look silly, right? And so I remember coming home one night and I'm like, Mom, you're going to teach me how to dance salsa. And, as the song goes, todo comenzó bailando. And so, long story short, my mom ended up teaching me the basics. And now I was dying for the 2 to 3 salsas that they would play the whole night to come on. And that's how I started, learning how to dance. And so, yes, you're totally spot on that there may be a correlation between people being able to dance the music and understand the music to its popularity, right? And so, I don't know. I'm going to keep an eye out. I guess I'm not in those environments or in those circumstances anymore, but keep an eye out around, the correlation there that you bring up, because I do think there's something there. But overall, right, it's a more niche genre of music that is a bit complex, right? Gets its roots in Africa, makes its way into Cuba, comes over to Puerto Rico, but really, really gets popularized in its name in New York City and in the Bronx specifically. So I think it depends where you are, who you are. And I think it's even increasingly more important amongst the youth, right, that didn't experience a lot of these things, right? And so now you look at us as parents, how are we passing that on to our kids as our elders and ancestors get older and older, if we're not playing it in the house, if we're not exposing them to the instruments, things like that. So
well, that actually brings a good point in the sense of what you just said, with your kids, with our youth. What do you think that young Latinos or Latinas today can learn from salsa, right? Both as an art and as a cultural expression, because it's not just the music in itself. And you were mentioning that it's, there's a history to it. But today, what do you expect Latinos to learn from that?
Oh man, that's a tough question, right? I mean, I think I said it at the beginning of this podcast, right? It's salsa is the vehicle, but what the music is a preservation of culture. It's a story of our traditions, and it's a story of our people, right? And their resilience and their resistance. And so that's what I hope people ultimately get from the music. But being realistic, like if it provides you joy in times of hardship, if it provides you joy in times of celebration, I think the music is doing what it's supposed to do. But when you think about the essence and the lyrics and the stories that are being told through this music, which are very profound when you listen to, some of the songs from back in the day, right? It's like, one that comes to mind is Maelo's Quítate la vía, Perico, que viene el tren, right? He's talking about a deaf kid who's on the train tracks, and he's like, quítate de la vía, right? But the kid is deaf and cannot hear, right? And you start to unpack that in the challenges, in our communities and some of the disparities that exist. You start to realize that the music is more than just the conga, the bongo, the campana, maraca, so on and so forth. So my hope is that the generations to come and those that are yet to be born gain an appreciation for the music at a sound level first to appreciate the sound, but then that the parents take the time to educate them on the history of this music, because only through that will our culture be preserved, will our stories be told, and will our history be kept intact and not whitewashed or gentrified, because we know what these songs mean for our communities. So,
and it's true about the being able to pass stories through like the oral, the oral communication. A lot of the songs, I want to say, like in the 70s, and I'm not. I've heard almost every salsa song out there, but I'm not a salsa historian, right? And it's actually something that I'm disappointed about, because when my father passed away in 2016, when I was younger, he was all about salsa. Like I remember he would buy the albums and we would like look at the cover art, right? Like the Fania All-Star cover art. And I remember there was one, we loved 80s movies. There was like one that had like Conan the Barbarian. Like there was always like, there was one, I don't know if it was El Gran Combo, but there was one where they were dressed like the Super Friends, like Batman and Super, like they had this.
Yeah, that's the cover of a Fania album,
right? Yeah. So like I remember all these things, but at the time I was listening more to like freestyle and like hip hop, and I wish that that I had taken it a little bit more seriously, because I love salsa as an adult. It's really when I fell into it. But I wish I would have connected with him a little bit more in that, because the songs, as I said, I like the romantic songs, but some of the ones like from the 70s, like Ruben Blades, they had like strong messages in there, like strong messages of like everyday life of the people who, moved to New York City and were just kind of, doing their thing. And so I think those are lessons that are within the music that we need to remember as well, that we are immigrants, and that, our stories, we all come from the same place essentially, and we all had the same thing, and we all had to struggle the same way. And we're all dealing with the same societal issues, right? Because and that's one of the things I always tell my children, is that never think you're better than anyone else, right? No one is better than anyone else. And, as Latinos, no matter what you think of yourself or you think of another person, you have to remember that society and others will look at you and they will sum you up just by the color of your skin or your last name. And these are the things that you have to remember as to why we have to stick together as a community, because, it's hard out there, and we have to support each other, which is why I love this podcast that we're on, because we want to amplify your story, like what you're doing, because it's really something that is needed.
Like they say, en la unión está la fuerza.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So, can you talk really quickly about the 4 pillars, and why did you select those 4 pillars for? It is 4 pillars, right? It's the documentaries, the events.
Yeah, it's kind of evolved over the past 6 years. Sure. So, in starting the project in 2018, events were important, right, to bring people together and provide an experience. So that's why we landed on that, and also because that was my exposure as a kid to the music. And there's something powerful when you are in a room within community listening to this music, whether live, DJ, what have you. Merchandise was another pillar. And it was because I wanted to wear merchandise that resonated with me and my culture, but do it in like a cool way. And so worked with a lot of like local artists to help create merchandise, right? And amplify our work through it. And so there it was an opportunity to collaborate, but also to put something out into the world that would live beyond a moment. Documentaries was that oral history version. So we did 2 short docs. Unfortunately, that cost a lot of money to produce these at a high quality level. And so it's something that we want to continue to do, but hasn't been the driving force as of today. And I have some good friends that are putting out incredible documentaries right now, longer form. But our community kind of spoke to us and told us, lean in on the events. And so that's kind of where a lot of our work has pushed into. And so where most of our time is spent is around providing an experience. And then that 4th pillar was having an online platform, i.e. our website, to amplify the voices of others. And so we would get submissions and whatnot and amplify the work that others are doing. And I think it piggybacks off of our last point is we want to celebrate our community and those that are doing incredible things around our culture and more specifically salsa. But I think that kind of casts a wide net. But the element of the business that has really taken off has been the event. But we haven't forgotten about the other three pillars. They're just not as prevalent and as prominent as the events element to what we do.
So now that being said, 2025 is here. What are like some of the upcoming events or things that you're working on?
Yeah, so we celebrate 7 years in business this year, which is kind of crazy. You start something as a passion, you never think it's gonna be around a year later, let alone almost 7 years later. So this year, I think for me, it's about continuing to refine our business, saying no more often, so that we stay true to our mission and the work that we're trying to achieve. But a couple things that I could share, today is, we're in year 5 of our Salsa para la Cultura series, which is a partnership I have with Grammy Award winner Jeremy Bosch. For the past 4 years, we've done about 4 to 5 shows at the Bronx Brewery, all live music highlighting the most talented and quality bands in New York City. This year, we're going to have a showcase of 12 events, so one each month, kicking off on January 25th. So that's a series that's going to be pretty big for us and take up a lot of our time. Also, we'll be launching the 6th iteration of my beer called El Condado de la Salsa with the Bronx Brewery. So telling the story of salsa through the liquid and through the artwork, and collaborating with a local artist. And then we have some other projects in the work. We have this kind of project that we're working on that will take place both in Puerto Rico and New York, working with a buddy of mine, Benny Marquez, who is completing a documentary on salsa right now. And I throw an annual event in Puerto Rico in La Factoria. So this will be our 5th annual event this year there, and looking to add like a cinema doc element and screening to it. So those are the big projects that we have on the horizon. And then, we have a couple of other opportunities with some of our friends and collaborators in the past that we're working on. We'll be doing some work with Nueva Yorkinos around Puerto Rican Day Parade, working with my brother and friend over at El Colmado, doing some stuff in their backyard of their cafe, doing some work with our friends over at Casa Palante that just got a new space in Brooklyn. So I think, for me, it's like, how do we continue to double down on this work in a more streamlined, efficient way that doesn't lose the essence and the authenticity of what we set out to do? And additionally, how do we scale, which I think I alluded to earlier. And so it's going beyond New York and Puerto Rico, and how do we expand further in Miami, Chicago, potentially LA.
Wow.
That's definitely a plate full there.
Yeah, so you got a full plate of stuff to do. And I was literally about to say, like, what about the other cities like Chicago and Miami? Because they've got like big, obviously big Latino communities, but big Puerto Rican communities as well. What about the when we met, we were also talking to Willie Rodriguez about the International Salsa Museum. Are you connected with him? Are you guys partnering or collaborating?
Yeah, so I actually sit on the advisory board for the International Salsa Museum. And, it was a privilege and honor when I got asked to be a part of that group of talented people, but more so to build a museum in the Bronx preserving this music, which is overdue, right? So that is another collaboration that will be happening this year. Willie and I actually had a call maybe about 2 weeks ago, and we're trying to figure out the moment that works best to collaborate on various projects this year. Busy on both fronts. So, you could be on the lookout for us to achieve, I would say 1 to 3 collaborations this year that might manifest themselves in various forms.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know how you find time to do. do you?
I don't sleep. I don't sleep.
Holy smoke!
That's a lot.
I don't sleep.
What I wanted to mention, because you kind of talked about it before, about the artwork. I love on your website. I love the website. I love all the art because it reminds me of like those album covers that I remember, very colorful and they're really cool. The other thing that I like about your website, and so I say all this so that our audience can go to your website, which is the Salsa Project NYC.com, right? I want them to go and check it out. My mother, I literally saw my mother, and she loves it. I love you have in your music section links to Spotify playlists. Those playlists are so good, and I don't know how long it took you guys to put together, but oh my god, my mother was just digging it. So I like all the elements that you mentioned in terms of the pillars. I mean, it really works, and the website's fantastic.
Oh, thanks. Oh, I feel like it's outdated and we need to revamp it in a significant way to keep it current. Again, it's just many things on the plate, but the playlists are definitely a shout out to my sister, who knows more about the music than I do, and is part of the reason I know some of the things I know. And she is an avid like salsa aficionado and collector, and she was the one who created all the playlists on that site.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. So for our audience, definitely check it out because it's almost like every month there's like a dedicated playlist, and they're really, really good.
And even though you say it's outdated, for all the newbies that get in there, that's a perfect way to start,
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
That's definitely great. I mean, continue the good work on that one, and have your sister update it as soon as you can.
Don't change those playlists because it's funny. I started I was like, I got to write this down. Then I wrote this down, and I was like, oh yeah, I haven't heard that in a long time. And then I mean, it's just too many. So I was just like, I'm just hitting play, and I'm just enjoying it. And so I played it, over the last couple of weeks, just listening to all the playlists, and they're really fantastic. So you've obviously had a very, very long journey in building this and kind of like everything that's led up to it. What would you say is the single most rewarding or memorable event of your experience so far with the Salsa Project?
Wow.
Put you on the spot.
Yeah, I mean, there's many that come to mind. I mean,
you won't insult anyone. This
one of my first events where my daughter was present, and I have a photo of her in a Salsa Project hoodie.
Oh.
And she was like, I don't know, months, maybe years old. And that was a special moment. I think every time my mom shows up to an event and the opportunity to dance with her, because she's just so good, such a great dancer and wealth of knowledge. And, fun fact, she was in the DVDR Latin thing. She worked for Fania for many years. So, many memories with her and dancing at our events. I would say our first event in Puerto Rico in La Factoria was nuts. Like, we had the place packed in like 10 minutes within opening the doors, where we were at capacity. I would say some of the interviews I've been able to do with during pandemic with Jerry Rivas del Gran Combo, Geraldito, the Dia Nacional de la Salsa in Puerto Rico, and being pressed and talking to a lot of the musicians, both up and coming and not. And I would say most recently, man, every anniversary is just a special moment where we're like, man, we made it another year through all the trials and tribulations. And so we've had many incredible bands. But I think one of the bands that really sticks out to me is when Jeremy and I launched Salsa para la Cultura, and we had Los Hacheros. And they put that backyard in the Bronx to move, and it was palpitating. And so the feeling in the air was like palpable. It was a heartbeat, and so those are some of them. I'd be remiss to not think about like when we had to shift to online because it was the pandemic, and it's just been an incredible journey filled with many highs, many lows. But the net is the most special piece is the community. that we've been able to build. And like I told you, I've had people come to me. I just lost a family member, and your event got me through it. I just got a promotion at work, and your event made me feel so much more joy. I've gotten you're the next Rafi Mercado. I've just gotten a lot of like notes and anecdotes from people over the years that really, give me the motivation to continue. And I think what needs to remain is the authenticity and the reason why we're doing this at the heart of everything we do. And I think if you do things that way, you're bound and destined to achieve greatness, maybe not fast, but over time.
And I want to just kind of touch back on something that you had said earlier for our listeners. When you have a dream, when you have an idea, when you have a passion or a goal, it's not easy to achieve it. And you have to like stay true to that and keep pushing forward in order to see some success. And I think that's one of the things when I talk to young people, I do a lot of mentor work with young people. And one of the things I tell them is don't be afraid to fail, because that's how you learn and you pick yourself up, and it's almost like a lesson. And so if you think that you're going to go through life and never fail, that's actually that's unrealistic thing, and you're going to be afraid to try anything. You have to try, you have to stumble, you have to fail, you have to make mistakes, because that's when you see the fruits of your effort really shine. And all that effort is kind of what makes life worth living, is seeing what you've built. And as I said, you said it yourself when you started this. You had some ups and downs, but I mean, where you are right now is fantastic. And I could just, listening to your events, I'm just saying, I know Colombia is a country where salsa is big, right? Maybe you do some events over there. We'll get Gene to host. We'll be a host for you.
You just let me know.
But, I think that there's so much opportunity, and I think the time is right, as you said. I really wish you the best, and we will support you any way that we can. We will amplify every single one of your events. We will be there. And it's a real pleasure to kind of get the chance to get to know you a little bit better. We always ask.
Oh, no, thank you.
Mm-hmm. We're coming towards the end of the show, so I want to make sure that you have a chance to kind of promote where people can see and find more information, and we're going to have it in our show notes. But we do always ask our guests one question, and the question that we ask them is, what does it mean to you to be a modern Latino today?
What it means to be a modern Latino is to work hard, right, at whatever you want to achieve. I think our culture is so rich in nature as Latinos. I think there's a lot that we bring to the table as Latinos, and I think sometimes our environments could be tough. Sometimes, we could be judged by our race, the color of our skin, etc. But don't stop putting in the hard work because that will get you far. And so for me, being a modern Latino means breaking boundaries and breaking barriers. The way our ancestors broke barriers to give us an opportunity to be where we are today. It's our job to take the baton and continuing to break barriers. And a lot of that comes with hard work and discipline. So we have a lot as Latinos to offer the world, and our culture is cool. Our culture está de moda. Our culture tiene sazón, and we need to embrace that, love it, and live, work unapologetically.
That's great. That's definitely great.
Yeah, I love that. That's
I always tell Ivan that we've always asked that question, and we have never had a duplicate answer. There's just no way. Like, everybody has a story, and there's just no way that anybody can ever duplicate that particular answer. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
We really do appreciate that.
So we want people to obviously check you guys out. We want you to make sure that our audience is supporting you. Why don't you confirm for me? I have it all here. That's why I have my glasses on. So I'll read where people can find you. I think it's the Salsa Project Salsa Project NYC.com.
Correct.
Perfect. And then on Instagram, the Salsa Project NYC. You're on Facebook, the Salsa Project NYC, which I love. And if people want to support you, I think that there's a link on your webpage for people to make donations and kind of like support all the work that you're doing, right?
And merchandising, right?
There is, yeah. You know, every merch sale, every donation gets reinvested into our work, allows us to do some community givebacks throughout the year. But as I always say, every follow, every like, every share, every ticket purchase to our events, merch item bought, donation, all helps push our mission forward. And so, yeah, the Salsa Project NYC on social, as well as the salsaprojectnyc.com for our website, and join our mailing list and be on the lookout for what we're going to achieve this year and what we have on the horizon.
For your events, people can buy tickets off of the website. So when the events,
so typically we'll have the links in our bio on our social platforms, but the ticket platform that we use is Eventbrite. The goal is to have it everywhere, but right now I would say Instagram, our link in bio, is the best way to learn about our events and purchase tickets to our events.
Awesome. Great. All right, so fans, you heard it right here. Make sure you check them out. The Salsa Project NYC. Make sure that you're supporting them. Make sure you're going to their webpage. Make sure you're liking, you're following, and be on the lookout for the events. This is the year of salsa, 2025. I know it's gonna be a sick summer. And to your point, I remember when we were at the Vecinos event, there was a woman being interviewed. I can't remember her name, and so someone had said, "What about like reggaeton?" And she was like, "Reggaeton's not salsa," and I was just like, "Oh, you can't really say that too much now." But I like what Bad Bunny's doing, and so I hope that some of that shine and stuff, obviously translates into even more excitement for your events. But I know
reggaeton is not salsa.
It is not.
It's not salsa.
It is not. It is not. I know, but I want to, big umbrella. I want to get everyone into the events, and I want everyone to be excited about the culture and music and stuff.
Well, appreciate the opportunity.
You'll play reggaeton at the end of the night.
That's it.
No, in all seriousness, thanks for the opportunity to host me and allow me to share a bit more of our journey. And as always, que viva la salsa.
Brandon, thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate it. All the best to you and the project. Wishing you much success, and especially here in 2025. Salsa. Viva, 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 salsa.
Salsa lo que hay. Seguimos para adelante.
All right.
Thank
Take
you.
Care, Brandon.
All right, Brandon. Take care.
Take care.
So that's really cool. Brandon's an awesome guest.
Yeah.
And, I think it's amazing that he took a passion and made it into this business. And of course, it is a business of businesses out there to make money and make profit, but it really has a positive impact in the community. And so, I really want to help him and I want to support what he's doing because I really believe in it. I mean, I'm a big salsa fan, but whether it's salsa or anything else related to the culture, I think it's important that we are preserving our culture because in this day and age, there's so many distractions and stuff. It's easy to get lost, especially with social media. We're supposed to be connected. Sometimes I feel like we're less connected.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed that he said, anybody can listen to the music and just feel it, right? It's a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But what was a little bit deeper than that was the part when he said that we as parents should be sitting our kids down and not just listening to the music, obviously, but explaining and at least sharing the culture or the history that comes along with that.
Yeah.
So
sure.
I think he hit it right on the head, man.
Yeah, I love it. So yeah, thank you again, Brandon. Fans, we hope you liked the show. And if you did, make sure that you like and subscribe on our YouTube page. You can find us on the web, and yes, I'm putting on my glasses because I cannot read. So you can find us at themodernlatino.com. You can find us on Instagram at The Modern Latino Podcast. We're on YouTube. Our ad is The Modern Latino Podcast. You can find us on Twitter. That's Modern Latino Pod.
X.
Oh, X.
It's X now.
Yeah, it's X. Anyway, you can find us on X, formerly Twitter. The Modern Latino. It's Modern Latino Pod, and then on our website, you can always buy us a cafecito and support our efforts in our show. And there's a little link, so you could just buy us a cafecito. But more than anything, make sure if you like the show, like, subscribe, leave us a review, give us some critical feedback. We're always interested in getting better. We added the video element we've been talking about. It's a little shaky. We're still kind of figuring it out. Software updates, blah blah blah. It's a little trickier than we thought. But at the end of this, I think we're going to be like super experts.
Yeah, we definitely will be.
So yeah, hopefully you're enjoying it. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here with us on our journey. And let's see. We're all here to see what 2025 brings. So we're excited.
Thank you very much once again for listening to us. We look forward to bringing you more episodes. And we just enjoy the feedback. We enjoy everything about our fans. Thank you so much for being with us. Have a great week. Have a great day. Have a great night.
Take care.
Enjoy. Bye-bye.